Sorry through you, Chair, if I could just introduce Matthew Riddle, who's the Chief Executive of JLT New Zealand, who's our insurance broker.
Welcome.
Okay, through you, Chair, if I could just give a brief summary. I'll take the paper mainly as read. So this is to do with the insurance renewal for Auckland Council, all the CCOs excluding Watercare for 30 June this year. Negotiations are largely complete. The insurance market conditions are benign, so we will come in with lower premiums than last year and than budgeted for. The most significant changes we're proposing for this year is the inclusion of underground assets. Now, below ground assets have previously not been included in the policy, just above ground. We are taking advantage of the soft market conditions and also the government review of below ground funding to include them in this year's program. The second main thing we're doing is looking to do group policy, again with Council and all the CCOs excluding Watercare for public liability and professional indemnity insurance, again to take advantage of economies of scale and use of insurer capital. I'm happy to take any questions.
Can you just under 5.2 and sorry, the second dot there, and also 10, the second dot, what savings are we going to make by the group policy for public liability and professional indemnity, and also what are the savings by placing directly with the market, London market, rather than risk pool?
Well, just in terms of the actual numbers, we haven't had the confirmation from the liability insurers yet of the price on the slip. In terms of savings, I can tell you from last year when we moved away from risk pool, Matthew, if I was mistaken, it was about 1.2 they had offered to us for the year, and we placed it in London for 800,000, so it was about a $400,000 saving for council alone. The CCOs had placed their liability insurance with the local markets in New Zealand, so they got it at a reasonably competitive rate anyway. What we're trying to see is if there is any particular savings in combining the two, particularly with the larger lines that council carries.
Thank you.
Ross.
Mayor Brown.
Yep. So we went through a fairly hectic period of time in local government insurance post Christchurch and GFC, and it was a very, very, very constrained market. And in fact, there was some question as to whether or not we'd get insurance at all. So I'm presuming through this report, and it's not evident, that the market is somewhat more robust and we're seen as a good risk again. So can you give us, Jess, a little bit of heads up as to what the present state of the market looks like in terms of competition? I mean, we've been able to sink our insurance costs for a reduction on the basis of seen as a lesser risk physically. How's our market?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I guess it's the global market for insurance, and Matthew's probably better placed to talk about that, but we do market ourselves as a good risk. The Auckland region itself is generally benign in relation to natural catastrophe risks as such, so that's what we try to present to the market when we talk to them. But there is globally a large amount of capital washing around that needs a home, and right now they think that they can find a home for that and get some returns by placing some premiums. But Matthew, probably better off to comment than me.
Through Mr. Chair, yes, I'll just confirm that the global market has remained soft. It's become softer. That is a direct result of availability of capacity and capital, or capital, which is the outcome is capacity. We actually anticipate that we are near the bottom of the market cycle around softness, but we don't see it changing for potentially several years because of global economic conditions. So I can assure you that Council is also seen in that context as a very, very good risk, which is very helpful.
But what is the robust nature of competition in the marketplace? That's the question I'm really asking. I mean, I think we only had one to go to about 5 or 6 years ago. So how many realistic players are in the market to actually give us a competitive marketplace in which to pitch?
Oh, no, the market has grown substantially in the last few years. So your program, particularly for property, which is a significant risk, of course, has been marketed to the regional market, which would account for probably in the realm of 10 to 12 insurers, and then obviously in London, where the number is even greater.
Very good.
Councillor Casey.
I've got two questions just about this big piece of paper here. I'm intrigued by something called key person insurance and why it's confidential, and how many key people are we insuring? And why is it confidential?
The key person insurance is cover for council staff for trauma and life cover. So the nature of the confidential information is in relation to staff information required for the purposes of placing that insurance.
I didn't understand your answer.
Sorry, I'll say that again. So basically it's buying cover to cover council's costs in case one of the key staff members gets sick.
Yeah, that was my question. What do you mean by key?
Right, that decision was made at an ELT level at a certain stage a few years ago, and that's to cover staff members that occupy key positions within the council organisation, so executive level staff, SLT members, and particular hard to find positions.
SLT?
Sorry, senior leadership team, executive leadership team, senior leadership team.
Are they the same or are they different?
Different. So executive, sorry, the ELT is Stephen and his direct reports, and the senior leadership team are the people that report through to the executive leadership team.
So the key person insurance goes down to senior leadership team?
Yes, and also to some other key hard to find, hard to replace positions.
Okay,
Yes,
well, that's interesting. And my second question was just about business interruption insurance. Is electricity outage a peril?
Are you
Question.
saying
I'm
is
looking
it a
at
risk?
Matthew here.
More secure of supply now.
It's what causes the electricity outcome. So we're starting to talk about what is a peril. So hard to define what that loss might be, but your property insurance covers you for costs associated with failure of utilities, but you have various sublimits within that, within the program. So the answer to that is partially yes, but there's some detail around the policy coverage.
Must be below ground.
Through you, Chair, probably a way to explain it is that if it's caused by an earthquake and subsequently electricity goes out, those costs will be covered. If someone just cuts the power cable, then they wouldn't be covered.
Ah, thank you.
We should perhaps be quite clear, key person insurance is actually a type of insurance you can get, it's not key staff here, so.
No, it's key stuff here.
Yeah,
Sorry,
I know,
it is insurance for our key staff. So the type of insurance you purchase, the product, is one that's available in the market,
Oh,
but
yeah,
we
yeah.
buy it for our key
Yeah.
staff. Yeah.
and so can we just be quite clear to follow up on that? So the insurance is taken out by the council, therefore the payments are to the council to cover the people. We're not doing it as part of salary packages where
Correct.
we're giving them money to do it. No,
Yeah,
thank you.
correct.
Okay, councillor
Definitely
Crump.
does not include us.
Councillor Crump.
So good, Jazz, to have seen you
With a
through the
three-year
tenders
premium
and procurement committee process. If we had $1 for how many times we'd have gone through in the tenders and procurement committee land, exclusion of water care, when we're going for group benefits, we'd be very, very wealthy, just the committee itself. So just a few, this is something that we traverse in that committee space, and just acknowledging Jazz, you taking over from Sarah as she's on maternity leave. Some mechanics, I guess, or rationale around water care's exclusion in this context, and any other broader comments you may wish to make about your future role and that space of group being actual group.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. It is an area where we would like to explore how making our size work as a group would allow us to achieve savings. Certainly, we've already started having those conversations with Watercare in the insurance space, and so we want to be able to get them on board, understand what it is that are their key requirements, and then package that up with our insurance is when we go out to a broker tender later on this year. So we would like to be able to demonstrate to them what the benefits of joining up in the group are, and get them to come along with us.
Councillor Cashmore.
Thank you, Mr Chair. Team, just if you give us a bit more information, please, about the underground coverage. I know it's a work in progress with the government, and there's really massive learnings came out of Christchurch about what the actual costs were compared to what was covered, and it's 3 or 4 times greater, I believe. But you say there's not a great deal of certainty about timeframes and so forth. So our timing of putting insurance in place, coinciding with the government's backing off, for instance, will we actually have evidence of when roughly that timeframes are and what our total exposure as compared to what it has been in the past may be?
Yes, so what's happening right now with central government is that they are trying to get risk information from the councils in order to form a view about what their contingent liability is. So learnings out of Christchurch, given that they cover, in terms of natural catastrophe events, 60% of the recovery costs for Three Waters and flood protection infrastructure. Treasury central government Treasury was meant to put out a white paper. I understood it was going to be out in April. It's been pushed out to a bit later now. So we don't know what their timing is. And what we are trying to do is to get ahead of the game. We've done some modelling of our risks associated with our underground infrastructure. The modelling for Auckland, because of our sort of benign catastrophe risk, has come up with a very small number. We think that small number is far too small, so in order to be a little bit more pragmatic and take, I guess, a better risk approach, we have proposed purchasing about $100 million worth of cover, which is far in excess of what our modelling tells us that the losses we may suffer in the event of a natural catastrophe. We're doing that now because market conditions are such that that product is offered. So going back to a point that Your Worship you made before, 4 or 5 years ago, nobody was out there in the market wanting to write underground risks. So that's why, the LAP product was available, etc. Right now, they are, insurers in the market who are really willing and able to write those risks. And we've had some pretty competitive prices come through already. So we're in a position to sort of take a lead as an organisation and, help, I guess, direct the local government sector in terms of what it is we can do, and we're always open to sharing our learnings.
This is not really doing anything extra, it's actually filling in a potential gap should something go wrong, isn't it?
Absolutely, and we've already got the signal from central government that they want to treat Auckland probably a little bit separately or especially, given the large exposure that they would have here.
Thanks, Jaz.
Councillor Fletcher.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm just wanting to, and maybe it's more appropriately directed through the Manga Authority, but on page 112, looking at those issues of liability for the Manga Authority, given it was a start-up in 2014, what degree of interrogation has been put through? Are we, I don't want you to go into a lot of detail, but can you just give me the comfort that there has been sufficient scrutiny in that area?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair, we've taken the approach that we work with the lead officers that work with both the Manga Authority and the other co-governance entities as well, and including IMSB as well. We talk to them about what they believe their risks are and their risk profile. So once we've had those conversations, then we will look to place those insurances at appropriate levels, so those levels that those entities feel they have comfort. We haven't had the opportunity to present that yet to the Manga Authority, but I believe that's happening later on this month, and so we will have that conversation directly.
Thank you for that, and I shall look forward to being part of that discussion. I find it interesting, the decision to review the insurance options is not a significant decision for Maori, and yet when you look at the issues of coverage in terms of liability, I would have thought that there would have been some interest in terms of assessment there.
Absolutely, Mr. Chair. We work very closely with those areas that within the council family that require those insurances, and as I've said, we work closely with IMSB, the Māngā Authority and the co-governance boards to ensure that where they need risk transfer solutions, that we find the appropriate solutions for them and at the right cost as well. So apologies if the report perhaps wasn't quite clear. It should have perhaps referred to say that we have taken appropriate cognizance of the needs for Māori.